Snow fell softly outside as Santa Claus stood in his cozy workshop, smiling at Tim in his green coat and Jen in her blue coat. "We have a lot to do tonight," Santa said warmly. Tim carried a stack of bright boxes to the sleigh, humming a cheerful tune. Jen checked a big paper list carefully. Santa Claus watched them proudly, feeling glad to have such good friends. "Oops, this ribbon is tangled," Jen said, holding up a shiny bow. Tim laughed and gently helped her untwist it. Outside, the sleigh bells jingled in the cold air. Santa Claus lifted a heavy sack and set it beside the sleigh. Tim wiped snow from the seat so it would stay dry. Jen smiled and handed Santa a cup of warm cocoa. The wind picked up, rattling the window panes in the workshop. Tim closed the door quickly so the warmth stayed in. "We'll be ready in time," Jen said with hope. Santa Claus opened a box to check the toys inside. A little teddy bear looked up with stitched eyes. Tim and Jen leaned in, admiring its soft, fuzzy fur together. Jen marked another name off the list with care. Tim balanced on tiptoe to place a gift high in the sleigh. Santa Claus chuckled at Tim's determined, cheerful face. A small wheel rolled off a toy truck and onto the floor. Tim picked it up and said, "We can fix this fast." Jen held the truck steady while Tim worked. Santa Claus checked the reindeer harnesses, patting each nose kindly. Tim carried a bag of carrots to share with them. Jen giggled as one reindeer tried to nibble her mitten. Snowflakes danced around the sleigh as they tested the lights. Tim plugged them in and the bulbs glowed warmly. Santa Claus nodded with satisfaction while Jen clapped her hands happily. Jen found a note in the list from a child who loved books. Tim ran to fetch a wrapped storybook. Santa Claus placed it gently in the sack with care. A gust of wind knocked over a pile of boxes near the door. Tim hurried to stand them back up. Jen steadied the tallest one so it would not fall again. Santa Claus looked at the clock and said, "Almost time to go." Tim tightened the straps on the sleigh. Jen checked the list one more time to be sure. Tim slipped on a patch of ice but laughed as Jen helped him up. Santa Claus smiled at their teamwork and brushed snow from Tim's coat. The sky turned deep blue. They heard the soft pawing of reindeer hooves outside. Tim opened the door, letting in a rush of cold air. Jen waved to the reindeer as they snorted happily together. Santa Claus climbed into the sleigh to check the seating for the sacks. Tim passed him a bundle wrapped in gold paper. Jen tucked smaller gifts into the sleigh corners. One ribbon fluttered away in the wind, and Tim chased it. Jen laughed and caught it before it flew too far. Santa Claus tied it onto a gift with care. The stars began to twinkle above the snowy workshop roof. Tim pointed at one that shone extra bright. Jen said, "It's like it's cheering us on tonight." Santa Claus smiled. Santa Claus took a deep breath of crisp winter air. Tim's cheeks were rosy from the cold. Jen handed Tim a scarf she had knitted herself with love. Tim packed the last bag into the sleigh and wiped his brow. Jen checked the harnesses one final time. Santa Claus gave them both a thankful, warm nod. The reindeer shook their heads, bells ringing sweetly. Tim patted each one before stepping back. Jen stood close to Santa Claus, ready to wave goodbye as the journey began. Santa Claus said, "Thank you, my friends, for all your help." Tim grinned and said, "We're happy to make every child smile." Jen's eyes shone brightly with joy. Snow crunched under the sleigh runners as it moved forward. Tim and Jen watched with warm hearts. Santa Claus lifted a hand in farewell, smiling at his dear friends. The sleigh rose into the starlit sky, leaving a trail of glittering snow. Tim and Jen stood together, feeling proud. The workshop lights glowed softly behind them in the night. Inside, Tim and Jen shared cocoa by the fire, knowing Santa Claus was bringing joy to children everywhere. They smiled at each other, happy for the friendship and love of Christmas.